Alright, so this is a quick prototype or proof of concept for rendering a mappable full 360 video panoramic. The setup in Maya allows me to render out each frame with the appropriate texture stretching for a spherical map inside of Unity. The camera is animated on a simple linear path. Let's see if I can grab that bad boy real quick. So I just modeled this really quick, and just to give some occlusion, some object occlusion, and kind of animate an environment, just to demonstrate kind of where we're sitting at. Actually, I'll hit the play button here real quick so you can kind of see what happens with the camera. Camera goes off on just this little linear path, buzzes along to the end, and stops. Altogether, looking at 120 frames. The render engine I'm using is Mental Ray, which means very long render times, even at low resolutions. The dome mapping camera rig solution I'm using has unfortunately confined my render engine to Mental Ray. This rig isn't the only option, but it's the most accessible at the moment. This is kind of semi-new territory for, well, semi-new is about the best explanation for it. It's the need for it has been out for a few years because of planetariums needing to render in 3D, and whatever small 3D rendering stuff. So it's not, there's no real industry standard. This is about the closest to an industry standard, this Dome Master 3D plugin, and it's really sketchy right now. It's very early in development. So this prototype right here is only one camera, and it's rendering at 512 by 512, and my full render time for 120 frames of animation was about 45 minutes. So once we boost resolutions to 4 or even 2K, you can add, and then additionally add in the additional camera for stereoscopic. This is just the single camera. We're likely looking at multiple days of rendering time instead of minutes. We'll be looking at about 1,440 frames of rendering times 2. So 2,880 frames at the lowest frame FPS, which is 24, for 1 minute of pre-rendered 3D video. So you can double that if we increase the FPS to higher frame rates, which, I don't know, may or may not be necessary depending on the amount of action that we're going to incorporate. Higher frame rates can definitely boost the immersion, but we should leave that decision probably up to the client, as it will significantly increase cost, and in some cases, for the rendering portion of it, double cost. So just to put that into perspective, if we were to use a render farm instead of utilizing my own rig, which honestly may not even be a possibility with the type of rendering that we're doing, because after all, it is what we're doing really isn't standardized yet. So many render farms don't have rigs that are or nodes that are set up for this type of scene rendering. So what we're looking at is 50 cents per core per hour. So at 4K, if we render out 4K resolution images, we're looking at 1 hour per 2 frames with 8 cores for a cost of about $2 a frame. For 2 sets of images, left and right eyes, we're looking at a render farm average cost of about $5,000 to render out 1 minute of 4K stereoscopic footage. So, with our in-house capability, we're going to have to make some concessions. I'm talking with a few people right now that have some other ideas about rendering and stitching using some quicker rendering engines. Right now, Maya software is kind of being talked about, and but these will be custom solutions, and they're going to take a couple weeks of development and testing in order for that to actually work. Real-time 3D rendering in Unity is still an option, but if we're going to be animating, for instance, like popping up buildings or other objects within the environment, kind of like he had already mentioned to us, frame rates on the GearVR are going to be an ongoing concern, right? So that's not to say these obstacles can't be overcome, but they'll definitely slide our timelines and subsequently our budget to the right. So now, with all that said, I'll kind of show you a real low-res mapped environment I have so far in Unity. This is, hold on one second. This is a kind of the 3D or the spherical mapped environment that I rendered out from Maya with just a movie texture thrown onto a sphere. This is 120 frames at 24 frames per second at 512 resolution. So the scene is very minimal. I have if you look over here on the left here, the scene hierarchy is very, very minimal. There's nothing really to it. It's got your first-person camera, a sphere, a plane for the player controller to stand on, and the movie texture. So that's really it. This is all we're dealing with right now, is seeing where our frame rates stand if we were just to incorporate a very low resolution texture in Unity onto a sphere and try to use the method that we were talking about. This is where we're going to play on this bad boy real quick. This is our environment, and I mean, it gets the job done, right? You see I got some stitching issues on the back. That's no big deal. Those are easily overcomable. Very low resolution. And that's that. That's what we got. We can look around the environment 160 or 360 degrees. So if you would just imagine this, instead of being the single camera, this being a stereoscopic kind of rift camera, then you'd have the full 3D environment that you'd be able to kind of have access to inside the rift. However, what you would actually do is render out two sets of this very same footage, one for the left eye, one for the right eye, and then feed each one of those separately into the rig inside of Unity. So essentially what's happening is that you're rendering two separate video files, one to each eye, and to give you the stereo effect, obviously. So obviously that's going to affect frame rate also. I haven't even gone into that territory yet because I need to figure out, if you look up in the upper right hand corner, we're down at 60 frame rates a second. So that's our next obstacle. How can we best optimize the video texture component within Unity? And then of course, there's the authoring component, the custom UI, which we'll definitely need to outsource. There's no way around that. So you're going to add probably about $3 to $4K to our budget, and just with the outsourcing of a Unity developer to develop our authoring software, our authoring component of the software. So, right, definitely plausible. Lots of work ahead if we're going to make it happen. We're definitely creeping into the 4 or 5 month project completion timeline, given our currently available resources. So, all things considered, with the current workflow, this would launch the project overhead into the 10K territory even before labor or profit are considered. So that's where we're standing right now. Lots of work to do, but this is the beginning, and we'll definitely make iterative improvements from here. That's it.